This podcast is brought to you by New Life Ministries.
Welcome to the Every Man's Battle podcast. I'm your host, JJ West. On this podcast, you will hear honest conversation and encouragement for living a life of sexual integrity. Let's get to today's episode. Welcome back to the Every Man's Battle podcast. We're so glad that you're listening today. My name is JJ West, and I get to host the podcast as well as speak at the Every Man's Battle workshop. And I get to work with individuals, couples, families who are dealing with issues around sexual integrity. I work as a licensed marriage and family therapist in the Orlando area. I've been doing that for a little over 20 years. And it's my joy to get to walk alongside people as they're walking through the healing journey, get to see God work miracles in their lives. It's really such an incredible privilege to do that. And it's a privilege to be on this show, to try to share some information that we hope will be helpful in your own journey of healing. And of course, I'm joined, as always, by Doug Barnes. Hey, Doug.
Hey, JJ. It's good to be here today. Really excited about today, getting to work with our brother Jim and just what he adds to our workshop and our intensive. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and my practice is exclusively couples and men who struggle with sexual integrity issues. And it's been that way probably the last 20 plus years, 25 years or so. And again, it is, as you stated, it's a privilege to get to be involved with the intensive, watching guys show up and being a part of how their lives change, just being a conduit of what God speaks through us. So I'm excited about today and what we're going to talk about. So I'll turn it back to you to introduce our guest.
Well, thank you for that. And happy podcast day to you, and happy podcast day to our guest. We're joined today by Dr. Jim Phyllis, and we are so excited to have him on the show. Jim is a long time, not only friend of the show, but a active stalwart. What's the best title to say for someone who has been around from the beginning of the Every Man's Battle workshop? Jim has led the workshop from up front. He's facilitated groups. He's led sustained victory groups since they began as well. Jim also serves as a certified life coach. As a certified life coach, gets to work with couples, individuals who are seeking to overcome the struggles of sexual sin and the damage that the sin creates. And, listen, he's done it all in terms of working in this field. He's worked with every population, and he's been doing it since the inception of Every Man's Battle. We're honored that he's agreed to join the show today. And we're talking about how do we talk to our kids about our sexual addiction? How do we go about that? It's a pretty touchy area because we're not really sure. There's no guidebook to follow. We weren't born with the knowledge of knowing exactly what to say and when to say it and how to say it. And so it can get really confusing, and it can also get really scary, I think, for a lot of guys. And so we're honored to have Jim join us because he's a wealth of information. And so we want to jump right in. Jim, thank you for being here. And can you share with the audience why you think it's important to talk to your kids about sexual addiction?
I think the assumption for a number of years has been, I can protect my kids if I parent them right. I can protect them from sin of all kinds. And obviously that includes sexual sin. So if I just parent well enough, my kids won't have to deal with this. And the truth of the matter is, that's what our parents thought, and it didn't work for them either. So, yeah, we need to address the whole of sin, starting as early as we can. And we need to start addressing sexual sin I think with kids, it's going to be different, but it's going to be much earlier than we feel comfortable doing so. One of the sad things that we see month after month at EMB is men whose sexual innocence has been violated at the age of 3, 4, 5. It's so much earlier than you think, and you never know by whom.
That's correct.
By a sibling, by a cousin, by an aunt, an uncle. It's just
a friend at church, at church camp, right? Yeah, it happens all over the place. Mm-hmm.
So the reality is, we would love to think that we can protect our kids from sexual sin, but we're not able to. The world, sadly, is broken, and so we have to be proactive in addressing this reality. And I say that as one who, when our kids were growing up, I don't know that I would have said that I can protect my kids from sin. I never believed that. But I wasn't as proactive. I wasn't proactive at all. Let's not sugarcoat it. I wasn't proactive in doing that. I was reactive. And so something would happen, and as a result of that, then I'd have a conversation with the boys. Susan had a conversation with our daughter. And we had an open relationship. Ultimately, it wasn't terrifying for them, and it wasn't terrifying for me. But I would say it wasn't comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And we could talk about other realities in the Christian life. We could talk about other temptations, and comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say, for me, I never got comfortable with it as my kids were growing up. And in fact, I became comfortable talking about sexual sin after I went to EMB for the first time.
Yeah.
It was EMB that unlocked transparency, and not confidence, I wouldn't say. I guess maybe a measure of confidence, because there were others doing the same thing. So I wasn't in a bubble. I hadn't been caught. I wasn't in trouble. We were talking about it in a way that was healthy and forward-looking, and that changed my life.
Boy, that is so helpful. One, that phrase of being proactive instead of reactive, I can definitely attest to. So much of my parenting in this subject was more reactive than proactive. And I regret that. I wish I could, go back and undo, but we can't. But I do want to have that mindset of being proactive. And just like you said, I mean, if we take our own stories, we don't even have to look outside. We just look at our own stories. I mean, I was about 6 years old when I was exposed to pornography, and I didn't have the internet back then. So, like you said, they're being exposed much younger than we think. And certainly we can't wait until I'm comfortable to have the conversation. We get comfortable as we're having the conversations. We don't get comfortable and then have the conversation.
Right.
So we're talking about, just in general, how we talk to our kids about sexual sin. Is there a difference when we're talking about our own sexual addiction? Is there a difference in what we should share or when we should share with our kids about our own struggle with sexual addiction?
My view, and this is talking not just to myself, but also working through this with the clients that I have. And so it's framed this way. We ought not to be introducing categories, language that our kids haven't heard about before, right? We ought to be talking about, these are the dynamics of our sexuality in more general terms, healthy sexuality. We need to be talking about that. Mm-hmm. We need to be talking about sin, and then making the connection that just as in everything else in our lives, we're broken, we're fallen, we're inclined to sin. And so, yeah, I have sinned as a sexual being, as a person who struggles with sin. Yeah, I've struggled with sexual sin. Mm-hmm. I think the specifics, again, depend upon the age. And I don't have a hard and fast rule like by the time this happens, you need to be aware of XYZ in your own story, or my kids need to be aware of XYZ in my story.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that by the time that your kids are dating, you can talk about your dating behavior,
Mm-hmm.
right? As you're talking about a more serious relationship, as your kids are facing more serious relationships, you can talk about the more serious relationships that you were engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a life on life kind of thing. And I'm not talking down the road. I'm talking about what they're facing currently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that we don't want to we don't want to create grief for our kids and insecurity in that way.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be able to speak about our sin in a way that is honest, that there's no blinking. And so the way that I've been able to talk about other sin with my kids is going to frame the way that I talk about sexual sin, my sexual sin.
Mm-hmm. So can you give us some guidelines when you said the way I talk about other sins is the framework through which I would talk about my sexual sin? Can you give us just a few guidelines? You said, honesty and openness. Is there anything else that you would add as like the framework that you've used in talking with your own children?
There are some specific things that I remember having conversations around. So one is anger. And so when my children exhibited anger, and they did it pretty young, disappointed, frustrated, didn't get what they wanted. So I would talk about anger and the fact that I also get disappointed. And it's not just, I had this thought just recently that telling my kids, you don't have permission, God doesn't want you to be angry, that I don't want you to be angry, giving rules is not what's helpful, right? Anger, I wound myself when I express my anger inappropriately. I wound other people when I express my anger inappropriately. And so I can talk about these are some of the experiences I have had. Like, this is how I hurt my mom and dad when I was angry. This is the reason I don't want to be angry with them. This is the way that I want to love them. I want to tell them when I'm hurt and disappointed. And I want them to be able to hear me when I'm hurt and disappointed. And sometimes that doesn't always happen the way we would like to. Sometimes my parents weren't ready for me to be angry or to hear that. Yeah. And so it became really unhealthy. That's why I'm going to need to be able to listen to you. And there may be times when that's tough. And I may respond in a way that is not helpful to you, that I get angry. And so we actually can talk about concrete situations. When this happened, when you were here, when you were expressing this, I know that you were angry. And I wasn't ready to hear that. Now, as I think about that, we can talk about it and this is what was frustrating you. And there's no way that I could relieve that frustration. I couldn't make this different for you. I couldn't say yes to you when you wanted this because I wasn't in the position to do that.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to hear you when you're frustrated so that we can walk through that together, so that we can live through that together and not sin against each other.
Yeah. I love this because the way we can extrapolate that right to sexual sin or sexual addiction is rather than, oh, well, I looked at pornography or I acted out sexually in my dating life or I, X, Y, or Z behavior. And I shouldn't have done that because that's wrong and I'm a bad boy and God doesn't like it. Instead, it's the impact, right? I can talk about the fact that the way that I hurt others by my sexual acting out, the way that I hurt my own heart by my sexual acting out, the way that it impacted my relationship with God by my sexual acting out. and
Yep.
being able to share that, and then, like you said, to paint the picture for what does holy sexuality look like, and the benefit of following God's order, God's plan, God's design for my sexuality. Like, why is that preferable? Well, here's why. It leads to this, right? It leads to this level of intimacy that our hearts are actually craving. I really love that. So it's less about, here, I've got to confess to you all the bad things I did, and it's more about, here's the impact of the way that I chose to live in terms of trusting in myself with regard to my sexual acting out versus God. Here's how it impacted me. Here's how it impacted others.
When I sin, there is forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing. When we've had an upset in the family and anger is the issue, then I'm encouraging my child to learn how to repent,
Mm-hmm.
to ask for forgiveness. I'm showing them, if I became angry in reaction to them, I need you. I'm asking you to forgive me as well, because I was wrong to have spoken to you this way or behaved this way, frozen you out, ignored you. Those were bad responses on my part, and I'm asking you to forgive me too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So forgiveness is not only possible, but it becomes a reality. And so the same thing is true in any other area of sin. And sexual sin is something we have a hard time addressing in terms of repentance and forgiveness. It seems like it's unforgivable.
New Life Ministries saved my completely broken marriage.
No matter how much hurt you've had to face, no marriage is beyond hope. At New Life Ministries Intimacy and Marriage Weekend, licensed counselors will help you rebuild communication skills and renew your commitment to each other. You don't have to settle for a miserable marriage or even one that's just okay. It's possible to experience a new level of intimacy and have a great marriage. To register or to find out more, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or online at newlife.com.
So there are so many, and we see this at the intensive. I know both of you have, right? There are so many homes, let's just say, that emotions are not valid. They're not accepted. They're not good for us. I don't know whatever words we want to put there. And so
Right.
that has to play a role in what you two guys have been talking about when it comes to talking through sexual, how do we handle our sexuality, and when we talk about emotions. I mean, lots of homes, and again, you get into your practices, and we've seen this at the intensive. Guys show up, especially, my word, not anybody else's, but almost stunted emotionally,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where we all know that they're in there, yet for me to express them somehow seems not acceptable, whether by other people or in my own identity. I can't express my emotion because, even if something has hurt me, I either keep it to myself, or I avoid it, or I ignore it, or I'm acting in, or whatever other way that we can describe that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
does that resonate?
Mm-hmm.
It certainly does with me. The reality, I think, that we all grow up with is we have the same level of comfort with emotions that exists within our home.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if my parents have some measure of comfort expressing their emotions, it's more likely I'm going to. And that's something that didn't happen in my home, especially what we would consider negative emotions.
Mm-hmm.
To be afraid, to be angry, to be sad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't specifically remember the experience, but I have the impression that at some point I heard, "You want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Love that phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And
I heard it in my house too.
So you shut off your emotions because showing emotions, showing sadness is not legitimate.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
And
weak.
I would say some positive emotions as well. The elation, being over elated by something.
You need to calm down. You're too excited.
Too,
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Calm down. That's
Calm
exactly right. Exactly right. So I do think that you're right, Doug, that we are emotionally stunted. I would agree with that word, but we're still dominated by our emotions.
Right.
And one of the ways that I deal with my emotions we talk about it as self-soothing. I comfort myself is using my sexuality.
Right.
And the release and the calm and the relaxation that happens after an orgasm is something that calms me. One of the early speakers at the workshop said masturbation is like giving yourself a hug. And Doug, you guys have heard that. You remember that. And it's not a good hug. We agree.
Right. It's not a good thing.
Not a healthy hug.
Right.
Yeah.
But it has that effect. And so we're dominated by our emotions.
Yes.
Well, one of the challenges is we either demonize our emotions so that we don't have permission to give expression to them. Demonize our emotions, or we deify them. We make them everything.
Yeah.
And whatever I'm feeling, if it feels good, do it. If it feels bad, avoid it. Run away from it. That's deifying my emotions.
Right.
What the scriptures are clear in doing is we give expression to our emotions under the lordship of God. Job and others were angry with God, frustrated. Where are you? So that is one of the things we want to help our kids understand, that their emotions are part of our built-in capacity as human beings. We're interacting with what God has put in our lives, and He can hear whatever it is we are experiencing.
Those emotions are there to inform us, but they're not there to control us. So we want to learn from them. We want to pay attention to them. We don't want to ignore them. We don't want to demonize them, as you said, where all emotion is bad and to be avoided. But we don't want to overemphasize, deify the emotion and say, "Oh, you're in control. You tell me what to do. I feel good about this. I'm going to keep doing it. I feel bad about this. I'm going to avoid it." No, it's there to inform me, but I still have to make a decision under the lordship of Christ. And so that I'm not deifying Christ, because Christ is already the deity, but I'm acknowledging his lordship and saying, no, I'm not going to let my emotions control me. It's interesting too, though, because you guys kind of set up, well, maybe a small minority of people grow up in a home where emotions are honored and talked about. A lot of us, most of the guys who show up at EMB, we grow up in homes where emotions might have been denigrated, you might have been insulted, you might have been told outright not to express, not to feel bad, not to be too excited, whatever. But then there's this middle ground, families where you grow up where emotions are just ignored. I don't get positive or negative feedback. They're just ignored. No one's paying attention. No one cares how you feel. And when you grow up in that home, you learn to not care about how you feel. You learn to just ignore your own emotions because that's what was on display. And so I think so oftentimes we're not paying attention. It's still there. I'm just not paying attention to the emotion that's driving my sexual behavior. And then I end up only after the fact going, how did I get here? Why am I once again looking at porn, or why am I once again at the strip club or the massage parlor? I don't understand why I keep doing this. And it is largely because we're not paying attention to our emotions.
Right. Why am I chatting up this woman that I really have no business talking to?
Correct.
What am I getting from that?
Yeah. Well, let's bring this back full circle, just to pull it back in to parenting and kids,
Mm-hmm.
as you stated, Jim, in our families of origin, especially like the ones that we have now. Okay, so I grew up in a family of origin. I've created one, and so how to for parents whose families now they came together, they created a new family, and now they have kids. So if possible, talk a little bit about how to get into that how do we teach our kids something that we didn't have, the freedom to express those emotions. And JJ, what you were talking about, how those emotions inform us about our experience, not delineate our actions.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a little bit to that, Jim?
Yeah, this is one of the things in the book that I wrote, Understanding and Loving Your College Student. I recognized as I was writing it that preparing your kid for college is just preparing your kid for life. And that doesn't begin like in high school. It begins, early in preschool,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
First awareness of things. So yeah, Doug, I think that the question you've asked is, what am I preparing my child to do? And I went all the way back to Deuteronomy chapter 6, and it says, what are you supposed to do? You are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. Honor, value, grant respect, worship God, honor the folks around you. That's what I want to prepare my child to do.
Mm-hmm.
My child is not bent on those things.
Yes,
This is my own.
that is true.
This is my own. I'll own it for myself. As we were growing up, the talk was always terrible twos, terrible twos, terrible twos.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to the innocence of newborns and toddlers? What happens? And two things. As they approach 2, they gain motor skills that they can say no by running away, by resisting you.
Mm-hmm.
And they gain verbal skills where they actually can say no. They can resist you. It's not like the resistance is born then. They just have the ability to express it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And so as parents, what we want to do is help them understand that is the bent of your heart.
Mm-hmm.
That is the bent of my heart. And what it means to grow up as a healthy Christian is to learn how to recognize that bent and resist it. I can't do it myself. Moralism, self-regulation, that's not going to get it. I need the gospel, and I need to walk with Christ according to his word and by his spirit. It's by his spirit that I get the power to obey. And I never do it perfectly, but I can do it increasingly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I want to train my kids to do from the very beginning. So then sexuality simply becomes that other dynamic among all of the other things that are broken and fallen in me. It's just one other dynamic. It's one other facet of my brokenness. And by the time sexuality becomes an issue, we've already had many conversations about what it means to share a toy when you actually want to throw it at the other kid. Or what it means to say, yes, I will go to bed now, as opposed to throwing a tantrum.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's application through their maturity and their growth and their age level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is where the Old Testament is very, very helpful. And again, it's Deuteronomy where they say, teach your children these things. Teach them as you walk down the road, as you're eating a meal, as you're in a new environment, as you're meeting new people. Every moment becomes a teachable moment because we're always interacting with other people, and we always have the opportunity to either honor God and respect others, or dishonor God and disrespect others. That's a choice that I'm going to make in every circumstance I find myself in. And so by the time sexuality is something that's on the table, we've had a whole lot of conversations about what it means to walk with Jesus.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That is
Thank
really
you for that.
good. Really good. You know, in response to your question, Doug, I would say there's a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one is I can't rely on or use as an excuse, well, I didn't learn this, so I'm off the hook. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't learn growing up. And in order for me to be a faithful parent, I have to take on the task of learning that. I have to read good books. I have to go buy Jim's book, Understanding and Loving Your College Student, so that I can learn about parenting well. I need to go to the Every Man's Battle Intensive, where I can see other men learning how to identify their emotions and express them appropriately. I need to learn. I have to go into those workshops and read those books and listen to those podcasts, because I can't be content on, well, I didn't know how to do it, so I guess we're just all going to not know. No, I'm going to train myself so that I can pass on something of value to that next generation. But it requires work. It doesn't come easily. I have to sit down and read the book. I have to sign up for the intensive.
There's another dynamic that I know you guys know, and I think most people know instinctively.
Mm-hmm.
My kids know that I'm a sinner because of their own experience with me. This is not new news.
It's not a surprise.
Right? So
headline, read all about it.
Ouch.
I spent 20 years in pastoral ministry before I began as a coach. And so my kids listened to me Sunday after Sunday, and the sermons that I preached, and the ways that I opened God's Word, and the challenges that I spoke into the lives of the congregation and into my own life as well, Sunday after Sunday, and then come home on Sunday afternoon and almost instantaneously, very short order, violate the very things that I was exhorting other people to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So for me to pretend that hasn't happened nullifies any of the challenges, exhortations that I give to my kids. So repentance, in terms of healthy parenting, my own repentance is the only way to go.
Oh, yeah. That's key.
Right?
That's key.
That is good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
Which requires a humility, right? I have to, if I'm going to repent, it starts with humility. And so I have to have that mindset. I have to cultivate that mindset. Guys, I'm realizing the time, and man, we're maybe halfway through what I want to ask since we have Dr. Jim with us today. Jim, would you be willing to sit with us through another episode? Would you come back so we can finish this topic?
Well, certainly.
Wonderful.
That was easy.
Good. That was easy. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Because there's so much more that we need to share, and I want to honor the audience's time in terms of keeping the episodes digestible in a commute to work or whatever. But there's other things that we need to bring up. And so in response to our conversation today, there's a couple of action items that I want to encourage you to do. If you've not read Jim's book, go on the newlife.com website and order Understanding and Loving Our College Student and read it. Start reading it. Read it with your spouse so that you can understand how to parent better in ways that maybe you weren't parented. Okay. If you've not been to the intensive, or maybe you haven't been in a while, and it would be good for you to have a refresher, I want you to go to to newlife.com/EMB and sign up for the intensive. If you put in our code, the EMB POD, EMB pod, you get $100 off the registration. Take advantage of that. that is a lab where you're going to learn a lot of the stuff like Doug talked about that you didn't have growing up, but that's necessary for you to live a healthy sexual life and to be able to pass on that to your children, to that next generation. So buy the book and read it. Go to the website, sign up for the intensive, use the code EMBpod so that you're putting yourself in those training labs that you need to be in order to gain the information, the knowledge, and the experiences that you didn't have growing up. Guys, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I learn, I grow so much in all of our conversations. So thank you for all that you do, all the ways that you have served God's kingdom in Every Man's Battle. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To our audience, thank you for listening. Thank you for paying attention. Please, if you have questions or if you have some feedback, we would love to hear from you. I get conversations from clients and at workshops, guys will come up or couples will come up and say, hey, we listened to this episode of the podcast. It was really helpful. Love that. Thank you. Please keep doing that. But also, if there's been something that has been particularly helpful, if you would send us an email to let us know, or if you would put in the comment section with wherever you're listening to the podcast and let us know. We want to hear from you because we want to shape what we do based on what it is that the audience needs to hear. So please do that. Until our next episode, guys, let's keep walking in integrity.
Thanks for listening. This podcast is just one of the many ways we can encourage and help you. If you're looking for more help, visit us at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Please remember to review, like, and share the podcast as it helps others find us. If you have a comment about this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line at embpodcast@newlife.com. See you next week.